I saw that, these common themes with, that's my posting over on there on the left that links to a particular blog, I think that I wrote. And we're finding that that we really shouldn't dismiss, all the things that they say and they're going through. Now we're taking it seriously. And I work with, you heard of the Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance, the organization.
Yeah.
I think it's formerly run by, what was his name?
Eric Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's so much intimately involved now, but we used to work with him more closely. Right.
I was never a huge fan of FSCHS.
Oh, okay.
I was a big fan of Chuck, and Chuck railed against FFCHS every single night. It's called.
He did?
He'd say they're the filthy perp scum, they're crazy talkers, and he'd go really way too far against them. But in my opinion,
well, that wasn't warranted, was it?
Well, what his point was that he felt that the shows were intentionally derailed every time that some important information was brought up. He felt like people would instantly start talking over him, talking about like the most outlandish things, like, oh, they're psychic and they're making things like like paranormal level.
Well, that happens with those people normally, right? I mean,
but he felt like that there were people doing that intentionally.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
And that they would never allow talk of the.
Address the subject matter seriously. Well, that's easy to do. I think there's a lot of people who don't want those guys to have that discussion, the TIs and the people being electronically harassed.
But it's the same discussion every single night,
Well, sure it is. But if it doesn't go away, then eventually you have to conclude that maybe there's something going on there,
It is going on, but the point is they never move forward. It's just every time even on the, I guess sometimes they'll have like advice episodes, so I guess I don't fully agree with Chuck on that. It's just what he was saying. And but I liked his show a lot better.
Oh, okay. Well, my approach is to give these people some tools, because we come from the aspect of surveillance and security, and we believe in providing, a tangible solution. So Wonderful. What we've been doing is trying to provide tools to these people.
So how successful are these microwave detectors?
Very.
Where are you located?
We're located in Ventura, California.
And once it's detected, is that for evidence gathering, or do you know something that can block it?
Well, there's two sides to that coin. As far as the evidence gathering, you have to, if you're going to make a credible case against someone who's doing this to you, you have to get something. And what we recommend is, you get your microwave detector and get your evidence. And then if you're going to, depending upon who you report it to, or, how you want to go forward, you can take a look at that Kathleen Waterton case and make sure that you follow that as a template for getting something done. Now, when it comes to blocking, I work with a company that has clothing articles, for instance, where there's silver lined articles of clothing, you name it, the hats, the baseball caps, the even tent sleeping bags, whatever you want. We use those as a solution, as a way to absorb and counteract the effects.
Wonderful. That's great. I'll probably get some. Try it
out.
You
probably should take advantage of that, because the people typically, at the end of the day, they're going to need something tangible. It's one thing to give them support, as a last resort. We want them to get in contact with the support groups, because some of these people are really at wit's end. They don't, they need to be calmed down first before you can talk to them.
2014, never in the news before, and then all of a sudden you get back-to-back Aaron Alexis, Miriam Carey, and Myron May.
Okay.
Aaron Alexis shoots up the Navy Yard, says that they're putting microwaves in his head through walls, following him around. Miriam Carey says Obama is sending her messages, that she's a prophet, which is obviously not what's going on. It's that they make you gullible and believe anything.
Yeah.
That's class. That sounds exactly like what they stuff they try to make you believe. And
the suggestion, power suggestion.
Her next to her baby in the car.
What did she do?
They shot her while she was sitting next to her baby in the car.
Oh, really?
Because she ran a roadblock at the White House.
Oh, was that? Yeah, I think I remember a lady running a roadblock, or someone running a roadblock. Was that the same person?
Yeah, And yeah, she said that Obama was putting voices in her head telling her she's a prophet and to come meet him.
Okay.
And then Myron May shoots up that school. All of a sudden, just back-to-back violent incidents. Two random shootings, or one, the Navy is semi-random. You don't know if he thought those people were the ones doing it, maybe. And then the random shooting at the school from Myron May with this long video, and he says he's being followed. He was in contact with Derek Robinson. That's another reason I don't like Derek Robinson, not just because he's a fucking former janitor at the NSA, but because he was in contact with Myron May, or no, maybe that was Aaron Alexis. He was in contact with Aaron Alexis, and he did nothing. He's just like, oh, okay, well, we have
really
calls every night, and you can go on there. He didn't realize that he had a person working at the Navy. It's just unbelievable, the amount of incompetence at FFCHS.
Well, I think they put themselves in a position of hearing so many stories around the clock. When someone knows that you're a central clearinghouse of information and support, not to defend what happened, but I think, unfortunately, if you're identified as someone that can help these individuals, you're going to get a lot of information regarding problems and your ability to pursue one that's credible.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think someone below was asking you about what I guess they had to leave and they came back and they.
We're talking about Aaron Alexis, Miriam Carey, and Myron May. Look them up.
Yeah.
And okay, so yeah, you were saying that.
Yeah, Derek and I think. Do you remember Tim White?
I remember the name.
Yeah, Tim White was working with Derek at that organization. Tim White has been my liaison for a long, long time. He eventually left, but I guess their model didn't really allow them to get a lot of support the way that, in terms of what they really needed to go on. And Tim White, I think he eventually had to pay his bills and get a real, so he got a real job. I think he left, but yeah, he was very, very knowledgeable. He's the one that gave me the impression that there was some tools out there. Right now, we're looking at electromagnetic field tuners as a way of helping counteract the effects of these things, in addition to the clothing and such.
That's really impressive. I had a question about the microwave scanners. Have you ever, when you're scanning, I imagine you've been there with the people when they've scanned for it or checked?
No.
Oh, really? Because what I would want to know is if they're measuring it and it shows up that the whatever range you're looking for shows up, if it goes away because the people realize, oh God, we've got our guy and he's detecting this right now.
Oh, sure.
Have you heard anything like that?
Well, that's always a part of the conversation. They're gonna know that I'm ordering something. My name is Monty, and it always goes like this. Monty, what if I get this product, and since they know I'm ordering it, they're gonna just turn it off, right? And so what am I gonna do about that type of situation? And we have to remind them that we can't eliminate that from being a possibility, but we can make absolutely sure that in those situations where if there is something you can't remotely turn on or off or something, or if you're, because a lot of times, see, these people's, their own households, their own living environments are such that it may be contributing to overall exposure, to electromagnetic radiation and microwaves and everything else. So our approach is to identify what's tangible, what's provable and verifiable, first, and then then we get into some of the more esoteric areas in terms of they might be listening in and they might be doing that. But we like to first verify everything that could be a part of the picture first.
I don't know what you said about just now that reminded me of this, but when I was when it first started happening to me in this room I'm in now, like in the first 2-3 days when it started, really, I think it was like the second day when they started going overt.
Yeah.
Acoustics in this room were totally different. It echoed insanely. Do you know anything what could cause that?
I'm sorry, the room where you're in now?
Yeah, like you'd say something and it would echo back at you, and my parents even noticed it. Like it'd echo really loud back at you. Like it was like amplified. Like sound like it was coming from everywhere.
Not exactly sure. I'm just 1 second. I got a customer. I I just answer this quick question. That'd be just a second. It's probably somebody being electric.
Welcome, Flo and Snow and Marley Barrow and Nitro.
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone who specializes in a product that could end up being used for acoustic harassment. That's one of our latest areas where we're looking into as far as acoustic harassment. It doesn't necessarily, as far as I know, let me think about it, because when you send acoustics in a beam type of form, like acoustics generally, they spread out like your typical loudspeaker. It spreads out all over the room, right? Mm-hmm. But the acoustic harassment, it could probably lead that the end result could probably be the same. But see, the way it works, it may not be practical in your situation if you're moving from room to room or place to place, mainly because that beam has to be sent over a very short range, for instance, maybe 100, 200 feet, unless they perfected to do even longer ranges. But see, it's line of sight, first of all, okay? So unless I'm in a place where I can beam this acoustic signal or beam, if you will, directly into your room, then it's probably going to be impractical for that to be one of the items that's being used. But it could end up sounding like an echoing effect if I could beam it through a window or somewhere so that it end up in a room and bouncing off the corners, because if the sound bounced off one corner and hit the other one, it could end up probably sounding like an echo. I don't see why that wouldn't be that it could be considered.
Are you familiar?
Everything else falls into place.
Are you familiar with the long-range acoustic device, the LRAD, that they used at protests in the G?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the guy who patented that technology, that's really an offshoot of this particular technology that I'm referring to. I think the LRAD is a militarized or weaponized form but it's the same principle. Once you get the auditory amplification up to such a high level, now it becomes damaging. It's a deterrent. But the idea behind the sending that acoustic beam from one place to the other is mainly for very localized, non-threatening type of communication, whereby if you're standing next to someone, I could target you and let you hear what I'm saying as compared to the other person. So for instance, in a shopping environment or a retail store environment, if you're standing in line and I want to send a special advertisement to you versus the person behind you, theoretically, you could hear a different commercial as compared to the other person. So this could have some very significant applications in the retail shopping environment, whereby not only are you seeing your own specialized commercial, but you're also hearing something that's unique to you.
Yeah, I've seen the commercials for the product. There was like a banana where they're doing it in a grocery store, and the person stands in a certain place, and they hear, "Hey, exactly. You hear that? You're not going crazy. You should know that these bananas are the best bananas," or whatever. While they stood.
Well, that's the future. That's probably the future of shopping, retail shopping in a brick and mortar environment.
And then in Germany, they have the trains now, where if you lean up against the window, you hear advertisements because they're using they're vibrating.
Really?
Ear. I've got some of those headphones, the bone conducting headphones, but I thought that might block out some of the stuff. But yeah, they have bone conducting windows in Germany now. But I was reading in the Wired article about the Voice of God weapon, that the LRAD, apparently if they change the settings, they can use it to put voices in people's heads and use. So And I think my police department had an LRAD at one point for whatever. And there's no reason I can think of for that. So I'm wondering if, and just not that the police department is doing it, but it makes me think maybe it's more likely that it's an LRAD than like, you know, some people say, oh, it's satellites. That it's,
Oh yeah.
and maybe it's satellite, maybe it's not, but
Well, I think I would lean more towards LRAD as compared to satellites. I'm doing all the research that I can do on satellite-based uh, solutions or products or whatever weaponry against these types of people. Right now, I don't have. I don't see anything that confirms that we've gotten to the point where we can use satellite-based technology for that. It doesn't seem like it's quite there yet, as far as I can tell. But that particular article right there, I got that information directly from the patent holder of that particular technology, and that's probably going on a year and a half or almost 2 years. And he was telling me that, you know, that at the pace that they're going now, you know, to get 200 feet was the maximum. Now, who knows how far they can get. So someone's going to be playing with this technology probably, you know, in a civilian environment, trying to see how far they can get. And there was some simulations in the library where one person sitting next to the other one in a library environment. This guy was like on the second floor, beaming right down. And he proved beyond a doubt that you could hear and I couldn't, and, and whatever. And people be looking around trying to figure out who's talking to him or something. But yeah, so who knows how far they've gotten now?
yeah, I imagine it's about 30 years ahead of whatever they're saying they have.
Well, yeah, once the military gets a hold of it, and because they have a lot more money to play with, who knows, you know, how far they've taken it. So yeah, and you combine this with some other things, voice to skull or whatever, you know, and who knows what you can do. Yeah. But this is why I like to give a lot of credibility to the dilemma, bless you, that the people are going through, because, you know, I got a chance to talk to some of these people and read what DARPA is doing and some of these other organizations. And when it's credible science backing the technology, then, you know, a lot of times you have to conclude that, okay, if the technology is there and the companies are looking into it, obviously someone's going to start experimenting, you know, with the actual technology.
Definitely. Did you see the thing a few months ago when the guy in New York was plotting? He got arrested for plotting to weaponize some microwave thing and go radiate people to death at mosques through the walls.
No, unfortunately, I missed that. Sounds pretty good. I should have.
Oh man!
If I can find that, that sounds pretty good.
Is arrested in New York microwave.
So he's a anti-Muslim or something, and he's trying to harm the people in the mosques, basically.
Yeah, that's what it said. Some sort of plot. I think he was working with like a white supremacist group, or he was connected with one. Man arrested for microwave and faces attempted murder charge after throwing.
Wow.
I find it, man. Muslim. Oh, here we go. New York Post. KKK member built death ray machine to kill Muslims. Apparently the FBI was setting him up with the plans or something.
Oh, so he went. Let me guess. He went onto the internet, did a search on radiating Muslims or something, probably.
KKK member built death ray machine to kill Muslims and Obama, prosecutors say. Ku Klux Klan member conspired to use a remote-controlled X-ray device hidden in a truck, which he called Hiroshima on a light switch, as a weapon of mass destruction to harm Muslims and President Barack Hussein Obama.
Wow.
Prosecutor told juries on Monday. Built a lawyer for Glendon Scott Crawford at the start of his trial. Wow.
Yeah, I'll send a copy of that and take a look at that and see how much he actually put into that type of technology or something, to see how credible it was.
Yeah, I remember something coming out later, or his lawyer was claiming that he was basically set up.
Of course.
which is pretty plausible. because they always set up these plots.
You mean like entrapment or something?
Yeah, like a lot of the terrorists that they bust are people that the FBI radicalizes, and then they're like usually a lot of times they're stupid, really stupid people, even retarded people. And they'll just put them in a warehouse, give them a bunch of bomb making materials, and then arrest them.
Well, that's totally different. I mean, they shouldn't. Yeah, we shouldn't try to get a scapegoat. I mean, that's one way of helping people figure out what's real and what's not. Then it's another thing for me or you to go out on our own and actually from start to finish, with a specific plot and plan as compared to some agent saying, look, what about this idea? Let's try to put this together, Yeah, one of them sounds like it's more geared towards creating a red flag, and the other one is probably more genuine in terms of me and you having some real motives where we intended to do something from the beginning.
That's true.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. So where do you go from here with your ideas? What do you plan on pursuing this as a passion?
We're covering the topic that the name of the show is organized stalking, electronic harassment. What do I see pursuing in regards to this? I'll keep making YouTube videos when I come up with advice, but honestly, I try not to think about it at all.
Right.
It's just that probably the only reason I'm actually making a show about it right now is because like somebody on Facebook like was like talking shit, saying you should go see a therapist, and like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, and that made me want to get I basically like responded to him like perfectly, and it made me remember how fun it was to like rebuke people.
Right.
In a way.
Wow. Yeah, I think I gave one blab on targeted individuals on YouTube. I mean on Blab, and I just wanted to experiment and see and get another video on record so I can have for my resources all together. But yeah, but also see a lot of these people, this is a very personal issue for them. So I'm not quite sure whether or not this is the place where you want to chime in on a video since and admit all the things.
But I already have all these YouTube videos about it.
Say it again.
So I already have all these YouTube videos about it. Like I've posted some outlandish stuff on there, so I don't think I'll ever have. I'm past that point.
No, not you. I mean, yeah, you decided probably some time ago that you were okay with it, which is bold for you, because a lot of the people that I talk to, they're so paranoid that I just can't see a lot of those people, at this point coming out and joining a blab session. You know what I mean? It's something that a lot of those guys just aren't really comfortable with. But it'll be interesting to keep at it and see what happens. Definitely to see. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. To have a bunch of those people have a regular blab session. Join me in a regular blab session.
Well, I don't really know what sort of audience I'll get. Like my only experience with Blab is like Martin Shkreli and his crew of like trolls and stuff. I don't know if that's what the whole Blab thing is like, but I thought maybe I could try and build up this little show here and see if I could get it going, because I have a group on Facebook with over like 2,700 members.
Oh, okay.
All saying
wow, that's
so
a lot.
I don't know why I posted in there. I don't know why. Maybe one or two of them showed up. I think 2 or 3 showed up.
Is this your first time? Your first Blab?
No, I did one yesterday for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And then.
Well, don't be too dismayed, because what's going on with Martin is just a catering to a certain type of person, people who basically want to, they want to be associated with a quote unquote perceived celebrity,
and it's so easy with them.
Right. So you're going to have your fanboys that hear this major, he makes himself to be a major power player in the pharmaceutical industry. But I think he's just a scapegoat that's basically been tossed under the bus. And now he's occupying his time before things get, I don't know what's going to happen ultimately, but I'm thinking the federal government is probably going to use him as a scapegoat as to what not to do. Because there's some major companies, the bigger companies, they do the same thing. but you're not going to see them testifying in front of Congress anytime soon.
Right. That's what I kind of think that they're doing it as a message to him for making them look bad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if he was more quiet, I'm pretty sure he'd be making drugs and raising the prices, and it wouldn't be a big deal like everybody else is doing. But yeah, sometimes when you when you go on record and you bite the hand that feeds you, and just make a celebrity out of yourself, and that industry of all places, it doesn't go over very well, I think. So that may be his problem, but overall, Blab is a very good place for some very specialized topics, and you get a wide variety of professionals and academics and different people who definitely will spend some time with you debating.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you called in. I was not expecting to get such a knowledgeable person on the subject.
Thanks. You mind if I put some articles in there regarding some of the other things that we're looking at?
Go ahead and post anything you want. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some water.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of blogging about this topic, and I'm always open to more information. Definitely.
I'm gonna copy save those.
One of the last things was electrical hypersensitivity. Electrical hypersensitivity. Does that? Have you ever heard of that term before?
Not by that name, but I think I know what you mean. Like I've heard of it called other things, I think.
Yeah, probably the same thing.
Like, is it just where people say they're sensitive to like Wi-Fi and stuff?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, same people, same group of people.
And it's real, or is it a mix of real and super like placebo, or is it's real?
Well, yeah, as far as I can tell, the science behind, for instance, I think it's called a SAS type of test that the military was doing when you overexpose the brain to like cellular transmissions. A lot of people take their cell phones and they hold them to their heads, and if you're not careful over time, what could happen is the body starts to react. The same with smart meters and such. Some people can tolerate it, more than others, and then every once in a while you get a small minority or a small group of people that react immediately to it, and they're called the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak, because they're the small group of people that seem to indicate that you can't bombard the body with these particular frequencies without having some sort of implications. Usually it takes a decade or something, especially with the cell phones. You see people going into hospitals and doctors' offices like 10 years after the fact, and then you look at the brain tumors and all these other things. But they're finding that, yeah, with the for instance, the smart meters, that's a particular type of wavelength or technology that actually the body confuses with some of the things that the earth produces, as far as the way the microwave pulsed frequency looks to the body. So right with the test dummies of the Wi-Fi.
What about, have you looked at, do you know what about psychotronics? What does that mean, actually?
I can't remember specifically. You're going to have to refresh my memory. A lot of times I read.
It allegedly came out of Russia's psychic research.
Okay.
They came up with these like mind-influencing psychotronic, they call them machines, and like that's what Russia says happened in the declassified stuff. But They say that that's what a lot of these weapons are, psychotronics. They say, oh, that Russia bought or sold a bunch of the stuff to Bush Senior in the 80s, and that's where this came out of. But I don't know if you I don't know about really what it means, because I'm not. A lot of times when I try and read the TI information, it's just such detailed scientific stuff that I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds like what's happening to me, but I don't understand the actual science of it.
Well, yeah, you basically that's what we're talking about when we're talking about getting on the same wavelength that our bodies typically recognize. See, because we're frequency beings, basically, that means that you can emulate a frequency brainwave that the brains actually interpret and recognize. You see that the body doesn't do a very good job in terms of interpreting what's real and what's artificial. So yeah, when we communicate to each other, for instance, a lot of times we're talking about matching frequencies. When
Right.
people start to get on the same wavelength, so to speak, that's exactly what's happening. We're basically figuring out, what wavelength or frequency that you're on and I am on, and it makes for better communications between us. So yeah, the Russians and those guys found out early on, let's simulate as much as possible how to duplicate that. And there's a guy by the name of Michael Persinger who does a whole lot with God helmets, for instance. And this guy experiments with magnetic actual magnets that rotate, and they get the left and the right brain hemispheres to synchronize, and that produces a form of psychotronics that ends up causing you to believe that there's a mysterious third a being in the room, and a lot of people associate that with God, hence the name God helmet. So yeah, it looks like there's a few things that lead people to not be able to distinguish between whether or not there's a real godlike presence in the room or a third party or something as a result of spinning those magnets in this helmet and causing the hemispheres to synchronize more. So yeah, that's basically what we're talking about, psychotronics for the most part.
Okay.
But
So what was it? Wait, sorry. What was that last part you said about what the effect they're getting from you said something about somebody at the third party.
yeah, see, Michael Persinger, I think he works out of Canada. He's a professor I can't remember what college, but he's in addition to being a professor, has done these experiments with this helmet, and it basically amounts to having some magnets that go around the entire circumference of the head, and he's found out, because again we're electronic and frequency oriented beings. When he spins these magnets around or causes the pulse to go around, what happens is the left and right brain hemispheres tend to synchronize more than they normally would. See, a lot of times we're left brain or we're right brain dominated creatures, but we find out when they start to sync up and you use more, you start to use them equally. What happens with the end result is that these magnets causes synchronization, and then you end up feeling as if, for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason you start to feel as if there's another being, another presence in the room, and everybody can clearly see there's nobody else in the room but you and the researcher. So the patients attribute this to that being a godlike or a third presence. And see, most people, since they don't see a physical being, they have to conclude that it's a god. They typically attribute it to that being God. So they named this helmet the God helmet.
Right. I remember hearing about it but you described it really well. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that. And I talked to Michael probably going on 3 years ago or something. So and I wanted to help him commercialize that God helmet, but I never followed up with him. But that's definitely something that he's proven beyond a doubt that there's something to causing the hemispheres to work in conjunction with each other a little bit more than they normally would, and when that happens, all sorts of weird things happen. A lot of these savants, usually you become a savant either of a number of different ways. One of them is traumatic physical blunt to the head or something. Another one may be some sickness or illness or disease or something. But the end result usually means there's no longer so much of a separation between the left and the right brain, and they start to synchronize more. And then these people report these amazing abilities, like the ability to recite a date 50 years, 100 years, or 2 years in the past, or the time and the weather, what it was like, and whatever date that you can think of, or the ability to assign a zip code to any city, state, country, or somewhere there's zip codes, or all sorts of weird things. Reading books 10 or 15 at a time and reciting verbatim whatever it is that they read. All sorts of amazing things are happening.
Wow. Yeah. Who made it again?
The God Helmet?
Yeah.
Michael Persinger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in that link, that should be a link to the.
He had a Kickstarter for it, right? Or am I thinking of somebody
No,
else?
I don't think Mike. He may have, but again, it's been 2 or 3 years. But Michael's is a very serious scientist, and I don't know. Who knows what could have happened. But the last time I was researching him and talking to him, it sounded like he was really pursuing some more traditional ways of getting that on the market if he did, because he's an academic, and a lot of times those guys, they're so far removed in terms of how do you monetize this type of idea, because they're all about the research as compared to how do you make money off it. I brought that to his attention, the idea that this could have some applications, at least in the surveillance industry. I don't even think he was considering that. Yeah. But it's really crazy stuff out there. Definitely.
So the way that it changes your brainwaves, what is the difference between that and, say, like something like binaural beats?
I don't see a whole lot of difference. The binaural beats are, I think, certain very specific frequencies that you want to take advantage of. For instance, binaural beats, you got, I don't know what, 7 or 8 different classifications. You got the delta and the alpha and blah, 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 and blah, goes on and on and on, right? Depending upon what you want to accomplish, that determines what type of beats that you're going to listen to. So those are very specific beats that accomplish something very specific. And you want to know ahead of time, usually, why you want to listen to this beat as compared to that one, because do you want to go into REM? Do you want to be in that period right before you awake, or right before you go to sleep, or meditation? Exactly what are you trying to accomplish? You want to be in the alpha state. So those are very specific, and I think you want to make a distinction between a predetermined frequency and what you want to accomplish, as compared to somebody who's seeking out to duplicate a frequency that the body recognizes and causing some harm or something. One is more beneficial than the other, I think, in my opinion. It's probably the bottom line for binaural beats. Probably meant to be more beneficial as compared to destructive or something. But both of them, have huge implications now as far as what we could accomplish if we were to figure them out in a more practical sense in terms of what we can do, because that's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah. So, how many TIs have got your services so far about?
A lot. Ever since let me see, we're probably going on maybe the 4th year, maybe, or 5th probably, because our advertising and the blogs and the videos and all that. I think once you start querying the search engines and stuff like that, you're going to see an abundance of, hopefully, I'm being immodest, but I like to think that we have some very prominent advertising or whatever, references to these subjects, because I get calls pretty regularly, put it that way, and So that's the first thing I have to tell customers. You know, yes, I'm familiar with what you're talking about, because obviously, if you didn't see my postings, you probably wouldn't be calling me about this. You know, so yeah, people typically see a reference to that, and then they immediately pick up the phone and call the number. So yeah, we've just, you know, we get them quite often. Put it that way.
Do you ever get calls from people who see your stuff, but they didn't know about gang stalking, electronic harassment? Like you were the first, they're like, oh, that sounds like what's happening to me. And then they contact you?
Yeah, that too, right? They want to figure out what's going on, and they never connected the dots, and that's what I try to do with those people. I try to let them know maybe there's something along these lines, and we need to treat that, because see, we have counter surveillance products, and those customers are trying to accomplish something a little bit differently, but there is a slight overlap in that. If I'm trying to affect you, your ability to sleep and concentrate on whatever you're doing, technically I could still use that same electronic devices to harass you. So there's a little bit of overlap, because if we could help you get rid of whatever technology that was planted in your house or your car, your office or something, maybe the problem will go away. So we try to make sure that, you know, we understand that they could be the same customer, but we ask, you know, we have to ask those critical questions and make them aware of the fact that we need to draw a distinction at some point, and try to see whether or not there's electronics involved, where we can find some sort of acoustic device or electronic device or something that could be causing you to have insomnia and headaches and migraines or whatever it is.
Okay. And so you're saying you can detect the things in the house, and how many things have you detected so far?
Well, that falls into two different areas. Basically, we detect a lot of things that are part of your normal appliances or whatever that you have in your home. You know, if your own appliances, like one of the last customers, even though he was severely affected by something and he was very paranoid and a very extreme example, we did isolate that his own appliances were probably contributing. You know, the radiation leaks from his microwave was off the charts. His big screen TV, because it was an older model, was leaking significantly, electromagnetic, you know, the radiation from the screens and such. There was a few things in his own home that he probably wanted to look at first. You know, it's like a drug addict trying to find out whether or not it's the drugs that are driving me crazy versus anything else. You know, as much as possible.
Yes, there was a guy who had a program called Q Wave.
Yeah.
Not the Q wave that you
okay.
that's still going.
Right.
CUE wave.
Okay.
And it was a patent, and he had the program.
Oh, really?
I did a little bit on the phone. It was a program that just changes the way your monitor flickers, I guess, or something in a specific way.
Wow.
For calming your nervous system. Like it was like a hypnotic. Here, I'll just find the article for people. Anybody wants to read it in the chat.
Wow, sounds interesting.
Nervous system. I had the program for a while, and then my computer broke, and you can't download it anymore. But it really did instant. It was like a visual binaural beat in a way, is how I would describe it. Except like you don't notice it. It's just like changes the way your monitor. Here it
flickers.
Yeah, something like that.
Michael Persinger was talking about the same. With Michael Persinger, he was talking about Windows operating system, the way it causes your maybe it's a screen flicker or something, but Microsoft's own operating system also was such that it does some things to. I think basically the end result is what you're referring to, causes the screen flickers to happen in a certain. We have to see if I can look that up and find what context he was referring that to. But it was like Windows. It was mainly relegated to Windows computers, and not even Apple's or whatever operating system didn't. It didn't duplicate this. Let me see.
I'm gonna let this guy on for 2 seconds.
Okay, sure.
He might be funny.
Yo, 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 yo.
Yo, what up?
We're gonna
We got an interview going here, man. What can we do for you?
Just chilling. I'm liking the topic, man.
All right,
You
cool.
guys
You can
seem to have
stick on
good
for a while, I guess.
chemistry.
All right, so what were we talking about? Oh, the nervous system manipulation. It's a really interesting article.
Or the cerebellum.
Yes.
You guys don't.
Computer monitors and the TV monitors can be made to emit. Computer monitors and TV monitors can be made to emit weak, low-frequency electromagnetic fields merely by pulsing the intensity of displayed images. Experiments have shown that 1/2 hertz sensory resonance can be excited in this manner in a subject near the monitor. The 2.4 hertz sensory resonance can also be excited in this fashion. And I talked to the guy who made it, who patented it. He's got a bunch of other military patents and stuff. Like sound weapons for the military, I think was one for protests. Not the LRAD though, some new thing. But yeah. What were you saying, Hala? Or what's your name again, Monty?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
this was in regards to remote viewing. There's a person by the name of Ingo Swann. Does that
Right.
sound familiar?
Yeah, I downloaded a bunch of torrents on how to remote view by Ingo Swann. I haven't
Okay,
gone through
yeah,
them
cool.
yet.
Ingo Swann, just to anybody else who doesn't know, he's one of the foremost experts with remote viewing capabilities. He actually taught the CIA and a number of other government agencies by actually helping with do some remote viewing against Russia. But anyway, Ingo Swann is the foremost expert, and it seemed like him and Michael Persinger confirmed that Windows operating system was one way of inadvertently prohibiting those guys with that skill from doing any remote viewing. So it was something inherent in the Windows operating system that seemed to block the ability to do remote viewing. I don't know what in the operating system or in the computer, the technology that Microsoft was using that prevented this, but it was just a weird coincidence that you couldn't do any remote viewing if you were sitting in front of a Windows computer.
Well, I don't doubt it. Assuming remote viewing is, I haven't looked into it enough to say. I've always thought it was like, a doubtful at best.
Your desktop.
They didn't make a distinction between desktop or laptop. They were just saying that this may be a way of Microsoft wanting to suppress that ability.
I use TeamViewer free, and I'm able to access my PC Windows via my smartphone if I want to.
Well, that's totally different. Remember, we're talking about the ability to do remote viewing without any technology, using your ESP-like capabilities. That's different, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Ingo Swann is doing this without any technology. Remote viewing is extrasensory perception.
Yeah, I buy it. I feel like the screen, maybe it's just the lighting. I know the blue light is, like I got the flux thing, so you can turn down the blue light that comes out of your screen. That's supposed to help you sleep at night better. Apparently the blue light is bad.
That's why I'm like, well.
Yeah.
I got a big 32-inch screen for my PC. That's all I use for entertainment. So.
Oh, okay.
And I'm up every like half an hour looking at the clock. Oh, we got 2 hours, an hour and a half hour.
What is the operating system? Is that a smart TV or just a monitor? What is that?
HD television with Windows 7 Professional.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I got basic, PC I'm running over here, but that's basically everything I use for internet. I mean, and entertainment here. I got basic cable. We just set that up because it was the same as paying for internet.
Oh.
And you got the basic digital cable, but it's like, what am I gonna do? Watch the news 24/7?
Yeah. So Haley, I want to go back to you. What is, have you noticed a trend in the people who've come to you saying why they think it's happening to them? Because I know a lot of TIs don't. They say we just don't know why it's happening to us. But I mean, it seems also like a lot of people speak out. So is it just, are they doing it to people who are just critical of the government and things like that, or what? Have you noticed a trend?
Well, there's two different directions that this seems to be going into. That's a good question. One of them is just experimentation. Yeah, my name is Monty. My wife, I'm using my wife's computer. My name is Monty. But there's two different directions. One of them is just experimentation. When DARPA and those guys start coming out with some sort of technology and they want to prove it in the field, with civilians, whether or not it works or not, then the civilian population becomes a guinea pig. The other people are usually those guys are just trying to figure out, how they're being affected. I think in a more indirect way. In my opinion, either you're a target or you're not. So yeah, as far as I can tell, it seems to be people who are definitely susceptible. See, what makes you a good target, I think, is one of these former generals or somebody pointed out. If it seems like you're susceptible to, I think you mentioned it, if you can block things out, you got a very strong will or something. If you can block things out, and one guy said, just try to concentrate on something, because my ability to affect your thoughts has a lot to do with your ability to not. Well, first of all, you're going to be concentrating on something very intensely, and that seems to be a way to counteract my ability to cause you to think about this or that. So one of the methods to defeat it seems to be to concentrate on something very strongly. But yeah, the ideal target is definitely somebody who's weak, maybe self-esteem is low, has been alienated from family, friends, or associates, and but it all depends, because in my article about targeted individuals, there's a lady, I think her name was Gloria or something. She was a book writer that Oprah Winfrey made very famous on her own show. But anyway, she was a very, very famous person to begin with, a very credible person. But she talked about being a targeted individual after she achieved her fame. So I'm not quite sure what made her an ideal target, but you think a very strong-willed person who seemed to have everything together, and a very credible person, and somebody that could actually, because she ended up writing a book about her experiences, and that didn't help keep this thing under the table, So
you mentioned targeted individuals.
Right.
Are they still sending brainwaves to these people via NSA intelligence, where they hear these sonic waves in their head all day long, and these people cannot concentrate. They cannot do anything during the day because they're targeted individuals. Their thoughts are being corrupted by the government.
But you're asking me, is it still occurring?
Yeah, are they sending brainwaves to people where they hear, almost like dog whistle noises in their head constantly?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's the whole premise behind the gentleman who's hosting this blab, is that this is an ongoing issue. And if you look at the link right there that I just put in there, right? Yeah, this is an ongoing issue. Definitely, it's occurring, and there are a lot of people who will tell you, because we have I don't want to say we have a sideline business, but we have a part of our business that's definitely dedicated to just addressing these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that young lady's name is Gloria Naylor, by the way, Naylor, and she's a famous author, and she decided, because she was experiencing the same thing a lot of these people are going through, she decided to write about it.
She had brainwaves going on?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit more than brainwaves. I mean, we talk about targeted individuals, people who are being electronically harassed. It's right. A little bit more than just brainwaves going on. Yeah, harassment takes a lot of different forms.
Because that was more of the old school thing, where that was pre-internet, where people are, having things sent into their head via the government, where they were just dog whistle noises, and they couldn't concentrate, and it was almost traumatic for them. And, just a constant burden.
Well, let me ask you a question. When you say old school, what is your opinion about synthetic telepathy?
I don't know much about it.
okay, we need to think about this then, because according to what I understand, synthetic telepathy is very cutting edge, and if I can duplicate,
Hey, I'll be right back.
yeah,
I'll give you a call. Kick these guys if they start trolling.
okay, thank you. Yeah, synthetic telepathy is basically like your ability to um, read the thoughts of other people over long distances, right? You know,
No.
some people claim to have that ability, right? Naturally. But see, some scientists are experimenting with the idea that they can cause this to happen to you by them creating the electronics to somehow intercept and your own brain waves and influence your thoughts remotely and over long distances. So when you talk about this being old school, I'm not quite sure whether or not it's old school. To me, as far as I'm concerned, it seems to be very cutting edge. You know.
Do you think the government may be doing that with marijuana and other things that kids like beer, like putting things in like germs in beer to kind of mind control young people? They know what products kids are using, so they kind of put maybe chemicals in them to suppress these young adults.
Well, that's a two-sided issue which you're dealing with when you talk about affecting the health of people. So you got to remember this: the population. If you can have a dumbed down population where their health is compromised, where they're always sickly or something, where you're not operating at full capacity. Put it that way. Typically, that's the whole premise behind trying to get rid of junk food or something. But yeah, so if I can make you as weak and sickly and then you become susceptible to me influencing your thoughts because you sit around all day, you eat lots of candy, lots of fructose syrup, and et cetera, et cetera. This doesn't help you to think rationally and clearly, right? So
Right.
you do become more vulnerable. So I wouldn't say there's something specific that takes over your mind. I would say there's probably the same approach that they've been doing before. They just have increased it a lot because according to what I understand, the amount of sugars, the amount of fructose, the amount of artificial this and that and the other has increased significantly. So now it's a lot easier for me to cause you to operate at less than optimum level. That's the whole idea.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you're going to be an ideal patient at that point, whether or not you know it or not. So yeah, it becomes easier. Now I can show you pictures of guys with sneakers and women with big butts and everything like that, and that'll be your sole focus for the most part. Right. The propaganda becomes easier, put it that way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the last thing you were talking about again? No, I was kidding.
He was asking me about he was under the impression that the government might be putting some very specific chemicals or something in the food supply to cause us to be
food,
make us brainwashed or something.
Well, that's what David Icke says. David Icke says that they're trying to give us all these GMOs and cell phone radiation and all this stuff to create this cocktail of whatever that's more easy to influence.
Well, David Icke is definitely a little bit more straightforward or whatever in terms of his views. But yeah, I think he's on to something right there. Yeah, a little bit more extreme than some of the people I listen to. But I think he's telling the truth. As far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I agree with like 90% of what he says, and then
he's got a pretty good following, put it that way. So there's a group for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Grader, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you, what exactly did you witness to where you thought you might be targeted?
All right. I made a YouTube video about it, but what I saw was basically in that hospital, they have mind-controlled people who are mind-controlled that are going to be soldiers for sure, like people who are joining the military, connected to Bush Sr., and they have CIA connected to Bush Sr., posing as patients or in there for updating programming or whatever.
Now, did you witness this in person, or did you witness it in a video or
in person?
In person. Okay. So what were you there for? Like, why?
I'd rather not even go into it. Basically, I was fasting and not sleeping enough and like talking really fast, so they thought I was like bipolar or something.
Okay. So they like you were like a psych patient
Yeah,
and you witnessed it that way?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I was a nurse, and I started off in the ICU, and um, I got demoted the first couple of months of working in the hospital, and the reason they gave me was that I didn't want to kill people. That's exactly what they told me. That's exactly what my educator told me in the hospital.
Wow, he admitted it. My psychiatrist in one of these hospitals admitted that too. But go
Yeah,
on.
but so I got demoted, and so I worked a year in orthopedics, and because I was trained in cardiac, because I was an ICU nurse, um, they they were sending patients to orthopedics that other nurses on the floor, um, because I was the only nurse on the floor that was trained in cardiac. I was the only person that could recognize a heart attack and separate that from something else. And I got a patient that I had already one thing. Okay, it's kind of a long story, but I was hired in under a training program, and that gave me the ability to move around the hospital and follow patients that were not assigned to me. And normally, a nurse cannot follow a patient that's not assigned to them. What happened was I started noticing medical records disappearing after um, after I'd see like a medical error happen. I go back into the computer, and that record was gone. And so that made me a little bit suspicious. And this is when I got demoted. They basically told me that I had a problem, that I didn't want to kill people. So um, anyway, I went through a bunch of stuff for about a year at that hospital, but I basically caught them intentionally misdiagnosing one of my patients with that was having a heart attack. He had all the symptoms of a heart attack, but they diagnosed him with pneumonia. And I got in an argument with the doctor, and then that turned into them trying to fabricate an attempted murder on me. Basically, like, they fabricated a situation that I know couldn't have possibly existed.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, the motives behind the hospital or the doctors making a fake diagnosis was what?
I think it's money. I can't.
Why?
I think
Explain to us, how do you make more
well, because
money?
doctors get well. Okay, I can't. I don't know the answer to that. But from my perspective, this guy, this patient in particular, um, I think he probably didn't come from a very like he probably didn't have very good insurance or whatever, and
They were just going to let him die.
I think that what happens, because hospitals, it
Right.
all comes down to the bottom line.
Okay.
If a hospital doesn't maximize its profits, it loses investors. Those investors go elsewhere. So I think that a hospital's whole MO is to maximize profits, and I think part of the way they do, I don't know this, but
Well, let's try to pick it apart based upon what we do know. It should have been cardiac arrest or not.
yeah, he had an elevated ST segment on his EKG, and the EKG was actually missing. He had the only reason I even knew that he had an EKG was because he had EKG stickers on him, but no record anywhere in his medical file, of any kind of EKG. So I reordered an EKG, but the doctors were dragging their feet on it. And finally, after 2 hours, they gave me another EKG. And once I showed the doctor that he had an elevated ST segment, the doctor just said, kind of blew me off. And
Okay, now I want to make sure you make it clear to me in terms of how the pneumonia thing factored in there.
he didn't have pneumonia. I listened to this guy's breath sounds; they were completely clear.
Okay.
He had a baseline blood pressure, meaning that he was already hypertensive, and his normal blood pressure was. I asked him, what his normal blood pressure was. And he told me that, he's normally hypertensive, and his blood pressure, if he didn't take his medication, would be up like 180 over 100. But
Okay.
normally he took his medication. I asked him if he had taken his medication. He said no, because of the way he felt. Well, his blood pressure was like 70 over 40 or something like that.
Right. So nothing to do with pneumonia. Right?
Nothing to do with pneumonia.
But on the death certificate, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. What did it say?
I didn't see that. I was actually, that was my last day at work for that.
Right.
And
okay, no, your involvement was this because ultimately you get fired as a result of all of this.
Well, I would get fired. It would just be if I could have just ignored it. I could have just.
But you didn't. You brought it to their attention.
Yeah, and that's what got me in trouble, because what ended up happening that weekend, after I went home, I had the graveyard shift, so I get called in at 2 p.m., which would be normally the time I'd sleep. Right. My boss wanted to talk to me, and the next thing I know, I'm getting written up for basically, like, there's an investigation for a tall white male entering the room of a patient trying to kill this patient.
Because you shouldn't have been following patients around to begin with.
Well, just I wasn't supposed to catch it, Okay. Well, anyway, I don't want, because it's a long story. I ended up quitting.
Right. Okay.
And I was
really sued for malpractice.
What?
But see,
a nurse can't remove medical records. A nurse, it's illegal for a nurse to keep any of their own records on their own patients. So what ends up happening is, if you witness something in a hospital, it becomes your word against theirs.
Okay.
And because it's a big hospital, there's no way you can afford to go up against their attorneys. So I didn't even bother. So what ended up happening is, after a year went by of me kind of brewing about this, because I was really pissed off, because I went to college for 6 years and all this stuff just to get this job. Of course. I was pretty pissed off. And so I actually started a business just to it's funny, your wife makes soap. I started a soap company.
Right.
And,
okay.
But I sold my soap at the farmer's market.
Okay. There you go.
And I used that as a soapbox to tell people about what was going on in the hospital.
Wow.
Well, this became big. I mean, I had to move out of town because of this.
Did you ever raise this as an issue that the public can look at? Or, I mean, did you put this on a public platform?
Let's just hear a story. Hold on.
Okay, so I started talking about this, and the paper wants to interview me.
Oh.
Okay. And so this reporter comes by, and she wants to talk to me about my soap company. I tell this reporter everything. Well, she looks at me. She says, "Yeah, I know. We know what goes on in the hospital, but we can't get in there to get an interview." Oh. She says that hospital runs this whole county, And so I was like, "Oh, okay." But she kept telling me to go to this meetup. What meetup is online?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, I kept blowing her off. And so finally I decided I'm going to check out meetup. So I check out these different meetups, because she wanted me, she thought it'd be good for my business.
Oh, okay.
So I start, I go to meetup. Well, so I go to these meetup groups. One was an outdoors meetup group. Another one was a vegan meetup group, because I sold vegan soap.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it was the same people were going to these different meetup groups. And so I started getting a little bit suspicious, about these people that are going to this meetup group.
Oh, okay.
Well, these people in this meetup group end up showing up around town. Every time I leave my house, there's not very many people in this meetup group, only about 10 people. But I'm seeing, every time I leave the house, somebody from this meetup group, and they always want to talk to me about, one of them always wanted to talk to me about philosophical issues, about the population control and why the population needs to be controlled. And, I end up volunteering with a land trust. And, it just turns into this kind of weird, it branches off into a lot of different directions. I mean, this whole story, it went on for a couple of years. And it consumed most of my life. But the reason I got interested in the targeted individuals thing is because within 2 years of opening up my mouth, both of my parents were diagnosed with cancer at this same hospital
Oh, really?
At the same hospital. And at the same time, I wake up one morning and I've got this crazy ring in my head. and I've got liquid coming out of my ears, and I go to the doctor, and he tells me it's just a sinus infection. Don't worry about it. Well, this ring gets it's so loud that I can't do anything else. It's consuming my life. It's just this ring that it's not like a normal, like the way most people describe tinnitus. What?
You can hear it all the time in your head?
All the time, never goes away. And still there. It never goes away. Anyway, I told my parents I didn't believe that they had cancer. So I told my parents, because what was going on, the hospital actually started a booth at the farmer's market right after I did. And the person that was involved with fabricating this whole murder thing that they were trying to pin on me, her family started a booth at the farmer's market. And they would basically try to line up their chairs and intimidate me at the farmer's market to get me to leave, to quit telling people about whatever I was talking about. But basically, as soon as I moved out of that town, both of my parents' cancers went away instantly. Like, it was just like a switch. Like, they went back to the doctor and their cancers were gone,
Did they ever get a second opinion?
They couldn't afford it. I told my parents to go get a second opinion, and they couldn't afford it. So they were stuck. My mom even tried to leave the state, and no insurance would pay for her. Insurance wouldn't pay for it or anything. So she's pretty much stuck going to that hospital that I used to work at to get any medical advice, which has really. But everything's fine ever since I moved away.
Because everything cleared up after you left,
except for the ring in my head.
And where did you go for treatment for the ringing?
I don't go anywhere for treatment. I
never went to the doctor for that?
No, because I think every time I called an attorney in San Francisco to find, because I can't go to the doctor anymore. If I go to the doctor, they won't help me with anything. Like I got in a bike wreck one time, and they wouldn't even look at my arm. Like, they would.
Does that mean you're in the same town, going to the same hospital, or does
no?
That
I
mean
went to a different. I went to it. Well, it was in the same town.
Okay.
But I haven't gone to the doctor in probably 6 years ever since this happened.
Any doctor?
I'm actually pretty scared of any hospital.
All doctors.
I would be too.
I don't trust any of them because of what happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it all. I mean, healthcare is extremely compartmentalized.
I just want to say real quick, when I went to the Vallejo mental hospital, my psychiatrist there, I asked him straight up to his face. I was like, "So these drugs like have as many side effects are way worse than like what they're supposed to treat, and that they perform much better than placebos, and that you're just and he's like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "So are you just doing this to like ruin people's lives?" And he's like, "Mm-hmm." And then he even repeated himself.
There were people that I worked with that admitted to, when I first got hired on the job, there were 8 of us that got hired on at the same time. And it was a training program that was supposed to last 2 months before we actually went off on our own. And when medical errors would, I'm not kidding you. I thought there was hidden cameras because I thought it was a social experiment, because the way people were acting out of these 8 people, when like the hospital would make an error and somebody would die, they'd just laugh about it. And I felt that they were profiling psychopaths. And I think that's like, that was the first time I realized that something's going on in this country. There's somebody is attacking this country somehow, because if you got hospitals that are profiling psychopaths, like trying to find people that are okay with, you just have to see the way it is.
Well, I think what you're basically saying is the same thing that I was saying earlier. And the whole purpose of this blab is to make a connection between the people that are vulnerable, the people that are susceptible, because not everyone is a good candidate for experimenting on. And if you're going to have a hospital environment that basically serves as a laboratory where willing staff members and medical professionals are not taking it seriously, even when someone dies, that kind of tells me that, we could be looking at a situation where everyone is in on the game, and they're basically admitting, like what's your name, Grader? Could I call you by your name? You want to be called by Grader?
Oh, I forgot. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, Gray was pointing out that yeah,
I love Donald Trump.
Good.
yeah. So yeah, you could be this could be just another situation where there's a massive collusion between all the people in the hospital, and they're looking for ways to continue their experimentation on that
But you
population.
know what? One thing I have to say to clear up: I don't think that everybody that works in a hospital is a psychopath. I think
Of course.
that healthcare is extremely compartmentalized, meaning there are people that I was friends with in nursing school that are clueless. Like when I talk to them, they don't know anything about what I'm talking about, and the reason is because when you're a nurse, you only have a patient for 3 days, and then you usually have 4 days off, and then you got a whole new set of patients. So
Okay.
you can't go into those medical records once that patient is no longer yours. You can't go into those medical records to find out what's going on with that old patient of yours.
What's the discussion topic? I joined the chat 10 minutes ago.
Organized stalking, electronic harassment.
But particularly what this gentleman to Sherman is talking about. You're talking about the healthcare system?
Oh, yeah, he's talking about murderous doctors. You want to? Were you?
Well, what are you talking about, to me or to
Sherman or Shaman?
Oh, Shamanite? Yeah. What it was is I ended up with some of the symptoms that
I'm gonna bow out. There's somebody that if someone else wants to call in, I'm just gonna eat a dinner, and if you guys are still available, you guys, I'll join after I eat.
Well, I
Hey, man.
contact you on those links you gave, so I can.
Great. Yeah, I think me and you really should do some networking together. Definitely. Okay.
Hey, good to
I'm
see
gonna put
you,
this on the
buddy.
big screen. I'll be listening in to you guys.
I hope you
All right.
consider Trump, man. Thanks again.
Yeah, really. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So we got to get to the real issues here. I feel like this discussion. Honestly, I only joined because I saw the banner.
Yeah,
like,
continue with what? Well, hold on. I want to hear the rest of Shamanat's story. Were you?
Oh, I was just explaining to him why I was in this room with organized stalking and TI. For the last 5-6 years, I've kind of been following it a little bit because I was a nurse and I witnessed some things that a lot of people don't even believe exist.
Oh,
and the
shit.
more I've talked about it, shit has happened to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, really jacked up things have happened to my family, and
like what?
Well, okay. I was telling him earlier that shortly after I started opening up my mouth, both of my parents were diagnosed with cancer at the same hospital. I don't believe they have cancer.
All right, I'm not somebody who ever puts other people's beliefs down or anything. Did you see? Are you a Redditor? You ever been on Reddit?
Me?
Yeah.
I do occasionally. I get my news all over the place, but I do go on Reddit occasionally.
There was a particular thread about a gentleman who had a run-in with, I think in San Francisco or LA or something, with the local police there, and he documented in a strong detail some of the harassing they were doing to him because he was just reporting on.
Oh, these guys! One guy used to park in my driveway. For a couple of years, I had an ambulance that parked in front of my house every single day. And every time I would leave, it would leave. And I'd take out a camera and try to get, and it was a red zone. I mean, ambulance, legally, they can park in a red zone.
Yeah, so what happened to this guy was he actually died, and the police just, wrote it off as a suicide. But clearly he was documenting his fears of the police.
Yeah, I remember this. It was a month ago.
I remember.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
He died. I mean, I don't know.
I know, but did there were people hitting outside of his house? He got them all on video. Did they go to jail? Did they catch anybody?
I don't know, dude. Honestly, it probably requires a little follow up. I didn't do that diligence, but
holy shit, I forgot about that. It was in Fresno, right?
Yeah.
Fresno murder conspiracy. What do I look up?
Yeah, I used to live right outside Fresno, so I heard about that.
It's the Fresno PD suicide.
John Lang was his name.
Right. There you go. There's some articles you'll see. But that whole department sketch is fuck, dude. Dude, I'm sorry that this is happening to you, man, really.
Well, I think that, you know, something's going on with the whole country. I mean, I just think that, I mean, I was suspicious of things before I was even a nurse, but once I got into nursing, I kind of, you know, let go of a lot of my old, you know, beliefs and stuff, and then thought, you know, well, I'm just going to go and be a good nurse, you know, be an upstanding citizen, whatever. I'm going to quit believing the government's bad or whatever. And then I go and I see this, and I'm like, this is too, you know, this is, you know, it was so in my face. I witnessed it firsthand. You know what I mean? It was no.
Shab, give me one of the biggest, you know, heinous things you think you observed in the healthcare system, having been a part of it. Like what?
There are lots. Like there was one doctor.
What's the worst?
Well, the worst.
This is really interesting.
Well, okay, it wasn't like one incident. It was just one doctor that used to. He was this total psychopath. He used to do these procedures on patients. Okay, I'll tell you the worst. It was the same doctor I was just talking about. There was a patient that was paralyzed from the nipple down, and she couldn't talk because she had a lung condition, and her family. This doctor just wanted her to die because the way he looked at it is that he didn't like that the family members were having to take time off of work to come take care of her, and so. One time in the emergency room, she came in from transitional care, and he started doing a procedure on her that normally you would maybe sedate somebody for. And she was like, he was talking about how she needed to hurry up and die to her while he was doing the procedure, you know, and I just thought it was just pretty twisted, you know. And he used to do the same doctor, like you could talk to other people. I didn't witness everything this doctor did, but I know a priest because when I'm not Catholic, but when I quit, there was a priest that sat on the ethics board of the same hospital, and he would talk to me about other things this same doctor had done that he had witnessed, you know, like you know, doing twisted things to patients when they were knocked out. And then and then looking around the room to make sure that everybody else thought it was funny, or because I remember this guy used to, when I worked in the ICU, we'd do these rounds, and he would just do these procedures without the right amount of sedation, and you'd watch the patient kind of be in a lot of pain, and he seemed to get off on it and stuff. That was some of it. I mean, of course, in the OR when I was a nurse, there was a doctor and a first assist that were playing tug of war when this lady was getting a breast reduction. They have to tie it up a certain way, and they were playing tug of war with the towels that was tied around her breast. You know, yeah. They were trying to trip out the students that were in the room. You know, they were trying to make us like, oh, you know, and so they would do more twisted things, I think, when new people were in the room. But really the thing that affected me the most was when they diagnosed my patient wrong, you know, and
are these concerted efforts though? Like, are they intentionally doing these things?
Yeah, it's the culture. You have to understand that, like, something that happens in the healthcare culture is that when you see people get injured all the time, you start there's this thing that goes off in your head where you're kind of like, okay, are these people innocent? Do these horrible things happen to innocent people, you know? And I think that in healthcare, people have to, in their own mind, believe that these people must have done something to deserve whatever's happened to them. So it's sort of, I think that I don't know exactly what it is, but the longer a person works in healthcare, the more callous they get, and the more they start to view an injured person as if they're more of a like they did it to themselves, you know.
Yeah.
And then here we are, we're the saviors here to fix the problem, and I think that creates a lot of problems, you know, for the quality of care that people end up getting.
Where were you a nurse?
I was a nurse in Visalia.
Where's that?
It's about 45 minutes south of Fresno.
Oh shit, dude. What's up with California, man? Having all these like corrupted PD precincts and fucking.
I think that
Now I'm hearing about the
the
hospitals.
hospital that I went to, I lived in a fairly poor area, and I think that maybe they get the leftovers or something. You know, people that I don't know because I don't know. I only before I was a nurse, I was a student in 3 different hospitals, so I got to kind of see what it was like in 3 different hospitals, and the one that I actually worked at was probably the worst out of. I mean, it's known as the best and the most technologically advanced out of the others, but the people that work in it, I think, are the most jacked up.
What are you doing now? Are you not working now? Or are you?
I'm not working. I actually followed my wife up. We left the area. Like I told my wife, like I'm leaving with or without you. You know, because things got so crazy where I lived. With the stalking. What I mean is, it got to where I couldn't even leave the house without seeing either the same people, or there was like one guy in particular that I'd see everywhere I would go, and he was a guy that was he was like an administrator in the nursing program at the school that I went to, and he was always like asking me questions about. I mean, I'll give you an example. I went back to Visalia one time, and I went out downtown area one time, and that one place that I went, that guy walked in like 3 minutes after I walked in. I mean, it's ridiculous because I can tell people about it, and they're naturally going to think, well, maybe this guy's a little paranoid. I don't really know what's going on with him, you know.
You
But
definitely, dude. At first, I thought you were a nut job, dude.
Well, I get it a lot.
Honestly,
that's why people like me don't talk about it, you know, because
yeah, I thought you were fucking nuts. More crazy than the fucking DJT supporter over there.
No, I got that enough to where I don't talk about it anymore. I mean, I came on here because I do follow the TI the group on Facebook, and I saw this post and I decided to follow it in here, but I don't talk about
TI.
Targeted individual.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's just different people that have either witnessed different things or had government jobs and decided to open their mouth up about it.
Wow.
And they just, I mean, I know what I saw was real, and because this has been 6 years since all this happened, and I've communicated with data entry IT people that are part of it. I mean, like they openly admit, yeah, we delete medical records all the time of people, you know, and even there's certain hospitals that outsource all of their medical records, and they compartmentalize everybody. Like they'll take somebody that has no training, and then they'll tell them, okay, shred this pile. And then this person that doesn't know anything about any laws around medical records will go and shred a bunch of medical records, not knowing that they just broke the law. So they kind of work that way to where nobody really knows anything about what they're doing because they're compartmentalized. Everybody is given like I'm just a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a respiratory therapist. Everybody is, knows their own little corner. And I think that's how they kind of keep everybody in the dark.
Monty Henry, you should join the conversation, dude. Hey, what's your name greater than ever before?
What do you ask?
No, I'm trying to like call people by names instead of hey dude or whatever.
You can call me Greater.
Greater? Okay, that's cool.
Anyway, I'm going to step out.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right,
All right.
dude. Hey, I'm not
Thanks for
trying
calling in.
to. Thanks for calling in, dude. I feel like I didn't take as seriously his issues at first because I thought he was a nut job, but he has warrant for what he was believing. You know, like he has fucking cause for his concern. You know what I'm saying?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a mental hospital. I don't know if you heard, but and yeah,
No.
my psychiatrist admitted to me that the only reason he's in that business is to fuck up people's lives,
Wow.
and he even said it in front of other staff members.
Like one of the orderlies or whatever, orderly people,
An intern.
an intern.
He said it in front of an intern.
Was he being facetious or what?
I mean, that's the plausible deniability that he has.
Yeah. Damn, that sucks. Monty and Angela, you guys should join. Oh.